play.
Yeah.
You see the red circle?
Yeah, I hit it.
Great. I'm camouflaged, so you guys can't see me. Jonas, hit the door for me, or come on in, Karina. All right, Middle Ages. Middle Ages, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. We're going to start in 476 AD with the fall of Rome, and we're going to go pretty much all the way up until the Renaissance. Things that happen around the world in the Middle Ages. We have the growth and the spread of Islam. We have the West African empires. We've got like the Tang and the Song dynasty and the Yuan dynasty of China. So a whole lot of things go on during this period, plus more. So, Rome falls. Rome collapses 476 due to the successive barbaric invasions. When that happens, the secular political authority of Rome, of the empire, collapses. The one thing that remains is the Roman Catholic Church. It fills the power vacuum. In place of political authority, we will have religious authority. And the church retains the Roman version of hierarchy. Bishop of Rome, bishop, local priests. So the priests and the bishops become the local political leaders in every village and in every town throughout the old Roman Empire. What this does is it gives the church a lot of clout. The Middle Ages of Europe are defined by three things: famine, disease, and war or invasion. Life was terrible. Average life expectancy was around 35 years old. So you lived a very hard, very brutal, very short life. What made the church powerful is there was that promise of going to heaven. It was the equalizer. So while your life on earth may be terrible, you are going to make it to heaven. So the church enjoys a surge in power and popularity. There is the doctrine of papal primacy. The Bishop of Rome will eventually become known as the Pope. The Pope alone dictates what goes on inside the church. What that means is Western Europe will be defined by a separation of church and state. The church and the political government are separate entities. In the eastern half, in the Byzantine Empire, the church and the state are intertwined. The church is a part of the government's bureaucracy. Make sense? Okay, good. Monasteries play an enormous role. I know there was that test question, the practice test I gave you. Monks lived in isolation. They took vows of poverty, and they worked very hard in these tiny, self-sufficient little groups, and they did the dirty work that nobody else wanted to do. They took care of the sick, they took care of the orphans, they took care of the poor. So they enjoyed a lot of popularity from the people, and the princes and the lords liked them because they took care of the people the Lord could have cared less about. That's money he did not have to waste. At this time, we're also going to have a separation in types of Christianity. In the West, in Western Europe, we have the belief in the Apostles' Creed, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three parts of one singular divine entity. In the Eastern Empire, while they are Christians, there is a small difference. The Father and the Son are one being, while the Holy Spirit is a separate entity. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but to the people of the day, it really was. It is a separation in the two parts of Christendom. 466 to 511 is when Clovis, who is one of the barbarian chieftains, begins to form some sort of political authority. Just rip the bag at me. Rip that bag. Here you go. I got you. Starts to form some sort of political authority in Western Europe, in what is today France and Germany. He tries to put and become a new king, so to speak, a unifier. He's never able to do it. His clan was just the strongest and the most powerful. And he begins to use what we will eventually know as feudalism. Feudalism is the overarching political system. It's when a king does not have enough money to pay soldiers for an army, so he uses pieces of his land as payment. I give Lena a couple hundred acres. She is going to control that for me, and she is going to provide some soldiers, so if I need to go to war, Lena and her boys come running. Who owns all the land Lena and her boys are living on? I do. Problem is, these guys are not, they're not very loyal. It's the proximity to authority aspect.
David Elliott reports to the main office. David Elliott reports to the main office.
Alright, boom. If you guys have anything noisy, any noisy wrappers, any bags, any whatever, get those out now so when I start rolling I don't get distracted because I gotta go really fast. Everybody good? Alright. Look at Leanne, she's all over it. Everybody else is good? 5, 4, 3. You can have them, baby. Just don't put that wide open. You gotta eat. Alright. Alright, we're rolling. It's proximity to authority. You cared when the king was near you. As soon as he left, there was no infrastructure. There was no roads. There was no bridges. So once the king left, you could pretty much do whatever you wanted. Charles Martel will defeat the Muslims in 742 at the Battle of Tours in France. It is Charles Martel that will really ramp up the idea of feudalism. Classic European feudalism will develop under him. And Charles Martel used already like rich people, people with land and title, he made them his counts. His predecessor, Clovis, took poor people and elevated them to the upper crust of society, thinking that they would be loyal. Instead, they got corrupt and greedy. Charles Martel felt if I already give somebody with some power and wealth a little bit more, it's not going to destroy them. Most famous emperor of the age becomes Charlemagne, or Charles the Great. He was a major warrior, a conqueror, and when he's done, he brutally subjugates many tribes in and around Germany and France and forces them to convert to Western Christianity. And he thought of working with the church. The people listened to their priest and their local bishop. Every town has a church. Every large city or even moderate town has a pretty big church or cathedral. And by working with the church, Charlemagne was crowned on Christmas Day in the year 800. He was crowned the Holy Roman Emperor by the Pope, showing the union. The emperor is working with the Pope. Charlemagne tries to use 250 strategically placed counts, upper lords, in his feudalism, but he never felt he could trust them. He used priests and bishops to go around and spy on them, but once again it was proximity to authority. He couldn't keep an eye on everything. The big bonus that Charlemagne brings is he rebuilds the love of learning in what we know as the Dark Ages, when learning actually regressed. He builds his new city of Aachen in Germany and brings in Alcuin of York to try and build up the literacy skills. Figured if he had a learned, scholarly bureaucracy, it would make the running of the empire better. Moving on. All right. Development of classic feudalism. And it happens in China, it happens in Japan the same way. If you saw the Japanese review where I put the European equivalent next to the daimyo, the knight is the samurai, on its way on down. The only difference in Europe is we don't have a shogun. There is no shogun. So you have a governmental system where the king is going to have to provide an army and money or support for the whole kingdom. Doesn't have enough money to do so, so he bestows land on his nobles, upper lords. Lena is my upper lord. I give her several 100,000 acres, and she is going to control that for me. Lena is my vassal. Her job is to manage the land I give her and provide military protection, not only for the people of her land, but for me if I need help. Does this make sense? Lena has so much land, she can't manage it all. So she will take some of what I gave to her, and she will give it to East Compton. East Compton is Lena's vassal. But who does East Compton really work for? For me. She is a lesser lord. She controls a smaller area and has a smaller amount of knights, soldiers ready for an army. So when I need help, I call Lena. Lena calls Anna. And everybody comes running. And Anna's job is to police and protect her little territory. Now, when it gets down to Anna's level, Anna's people live on what is called a manor. Think of a manor as a southern plantation, where the people that Anna is protecting will grow her food. They will give her everything she needs, from the clothes she wears to the food she eats. In return, she protects them. Anna's little farm is called a manor. It's manoralism. It's the microcosmic thing of feudalism is the overall governmental system. Manoralism is each plot of land that Lena and Anna is protecting. It's the economic system. Dirk?
Can feudalism survive without manoralism?
Not really.
But manoralism can be fine on its own, right?
Correct. Correct. Manors become those self-sufficient little castle towns or villages that, remember, we don't want to attract attention. We want to stay really small as all the invaders come. So each manor is a small, self-sufficient little community, but I collect my taxes from it. Does that make sense? I get a little bit from every manor. So the king getting a little bit from many sources makes him rich. All right, there we go. Both Lena and Anna have many smaller knights. The economy is all agricultural. People are going to farm and try and eke a living out of the land. Peasants, you live in subordination of the Lord. Anna's people have to do what she tells them. Lena's people have to do what she tells them, even Anna. All right, because who gave Anna her land? Lena did. The great thing about it is feudalism was flexible. There was no rule book. You could adjust the rules any way you saw fit. But feudalism depends on mutual rights and responsibilities. If I don't look after you, if I don't protect you, are you going to work for me? No. All right? And in times of a bad harvest, or if there is war or a famine, I can take it easy on the taxes on you for that year until things are recovered. Like Dirk asked, we pretty much need each other in order to survive. 843, Charlemagne's grandsons will wreck the political unity Charlemagne was trying to build. He was trying to reunify all of Western Europe. His grandsons fight over the inheritance. According to their custom, each family member was supposed to receive an equal share of the land. Charlemagne's son says, no, we are the Holy Roman Emperor, singular, not emperors. The Pope says, I want one emperor, I don't want many. The brothers fight a civil war, and they equally divide up Europe in 843, a division that will last well on into the 1500s. It destroys a little bit of political unity and condemns Europe to 600 years of backward dark ages because there was no political continuity in Europe. Everybody good? Now, as Rome falls, over in the east, there is an extension of the Roman Empire, the rich Byzantine Empire. And it has an early golden age, early in the 500s, 527, to like 565, because it was an extension of Rome where it enjoyed trade, it had a safe harbor, and it's where all the rich people went. When Rome was falling, people just migrated eastward. So it remains vibrant and powerful well after Rome falls. The big emperor is Emperor Justinian, and his wife Theodora, who many people think is Justinian's backbone during this time. And Justinian will write the Corpus Juris Civilis, the body of common law. And what that is, he has his scholars look through all of the old laws that Roman emperors made over the years, and he finds the ones that are contradictory or don't work, and he has them all thrown out and draws up a new law book. And what it does is it will allow the emperor from his time on up through absolutism to greatly augment their power. This is the body of common law. This is what the law says, and the emperor drives the ship. I'm in charge, I am master and commander, and you will like it. Big difference. Eastern Orthodox Christianity is the emperor is head of the church, not the pope. The patriarch, or the head religious official in Eastern Orthodox Christianity, is a subservient. He is underneath the emperor. In the Eastern Empire, church and state is deeply intertwined. King felt that he was God's representative on earth, so I run the church. Another big division between the two parts of Christendom, besides the concept of the Trinity, is the Eastern Empire did not like the use of icons. Paintings, frescoes, or statues of Jesus or Mary or the saints were forbidden where they were revered in the Western Empire. 1054, in the heart of the Dark Ages, there was a thing known as the Great Schism, where the eastern and western halves of Europe will forever split apart due to that religious difference. However, even with that, the Eastern Empire in its headquarters of Constantinople, this blending of the Hellenistic world, of European, of Egyptian, of Arabic, even Indian art and architecture, it flourishes in one of the great cosmopolitan cities of the world. Constantinople replaces Rome as the icon go-to city in the world at the time. You guys with me? All right, great. Now, farther on up the road, interacting with the Byzantine Empire, will be Mother Russia. And Russia is made up of, Slavs, people descended from Russians. About 700 or 800, right at the time that Islam is really beginning to expand from the heartlands, when Charlemagne is the Holy Roman Emperor, the Germanic barbarians that had existed in the area begin to mix and hang out and marry into a group of Vikings in what is today the Ukraine, where Vladimir Putin is. And on a major river, they form the city of Kiev. And it becomes a big trading outpost between, southern Europe to Turkey, all the way on up into Scandinavia. Alec and his friends come along around 956, and the Greek language meets kind of the Russian. They kind of form this Cyrillic kind of language and style that Alec can tell you more about because he was there when it was invented. And it's a blending of the two cultures. So if you see like Greek writing and Russian writing, you can get lost in French, you can get lost, and you can read the alphabet. You're in Greece or Russia. What's the saying in Greece? It's all Greek to me. I have no idea what it says. Thanks, Alex, for that. So anyway, there is a new trade route that will start in Beijing. The Silk Road, or roads, we know kind of goes south and runs through, like, Pakistan and Afghanistan towards India. There was a northerly route that paralleled them that ran from Beijing and runs up into Kiev. It brought Russia into the world market. This happens because of the Mongols who arrive in 1236, and they're known as the Golden Horde. They will convert to Islam, and they open this new trade route with Northern Europe. But this is good and bad. It opens a trade route with the Russians, with Asia, but it further cuts themselves off from Europe. It was too far to go. The Europeans preferred the southern Silk Road, and when they had competition up in Russia, they kind of back off and leave Russia to themselves. The Muslims, the Mongols, will move back towards China, leaving Russian princes to kind of take over. Its proximity to authority, and the city of Moscow will be built, the modern capital. From 462 to 1505, we get a guy known as Ivan the Great. He is the guy who will get rid of the Mongols and begin to politically unify Russia, make it a more Russian, I guess, small bit of Russian nationalism. He will be succeeded by his son, Ivan IV, or Ivan the Terrible, who goes insane, heavily persecutes his people, and is so oppressive when he dies. He kickstarts a thing known as the Time of Troubles. It's the point where Russia begins to fall beneath the green ooze of the pond, if you guys remember that analogy. On the AP exam, please don't refer to Russia as green pond scum and the ooze. Try and find a little more delicate way to say that, please. Okay. So, Drew.
How likely do you think that it's going to? How likely do you think there's going to be like early Russia as one of the essays?
I think very small, but again, I mean, we're walking into an exam in 2 days, and I was talking to some of your parents who were kind of panicking. Guys, there's 52,000 years of where we've covered most of it, and what sucks about it is they're going to pick 3 questions, and, I mean, if I knew what was going to be on it, we would kill it, all right? But it's just, you're going to we'll talk more about it in class. You're probably going to go in and you might suffer reading some of the nice colorful notes you guys wrote to me in my test, which we'll talk about in class as well. You're going to have a few seconds of panic. Just relax. It'll come to you. But when we've done, can we have prepared any more? Like, what else could we have done? I mean, we could have always written more, but I mean, we don't, the content, we've pretty much done everything. So. All right, moving on. Same time, in France, we have a thing known as the Cluny Reforms, where people said the church is getting corrupted. So we've got a clean house. We're moving away from our, spiritual mission. And it's when everyone begins to follow the orders of Saint Benedict, the guy who said you should pray for 3 hours, study for 3 hours, work for 3 hours, sleep for 3 hours, and keep that going on a rotating basis. This is going to carry us up through the Crusades and what is known as the High Middle Ages. And it's at the point where we start getting into emperor versus pope conflicts. Political leaders, emperors, will come about that believe they can tell the church what to do. Pope Gregory VII begins what's called the Gregorian Reforms. He was a guy who said the church must be separate from political authority, and he will go get into a war of words, so to speak, with Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV, and the Pope will excommunicate Henry, which means he kicks him out of the church. If you're kicked out of the church and you die, can you go to heaven? No. So Henry goes to visit the Pope for 3 days. He stands outside the Pope's window. until the Pope forgives him. What that shows is, at this point, near the year 1000, the Pope is still stronger than any emperor. And this begins a complicated process of lay investiture. Political leaders, princes, dukes, emperors, found it easier to control their populations if church officials did what they wanted. If the church tells the people to do it, the people are going to do it. So I make Karina a bishop. I make Olivia the head of a monastery. Karina and Olivia, do you guys have any religious training whatsoever? No, I'm just taking my buddies and giving them important church jobs, hoping the people will listen to them. The Pope says no, and a big battle happens over lay investiture, and it's settled in 1122 at the Concordat of Worms, where the Pope says, I am the only one who can name church officials. I'm the only one who can make religious authority. Emperors, you cannot do it. It was written out in 1122. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but once again, the church emerges victorious. In this time, we have the First Crusade. The city of Constantinople was under threat from Arabic Muslims attacking, and so the emperor does something unprecedented. He calls on the Western Pope for help. Pope Urban II, a very powerful pope, says hopefully we can reunify Europe religiously. He sends a bunch of knights on a crusade. He gives them a thing called a plenary indulgence, that if you die in battle, all your sins are immediately forgiven. And we can go to war against the people who don't do what? They don't look like we do. They don't speak like us. And they don't believe like us. So what do we got to do? We got to kill them. There's really no alternative. And this starts a series of crusades. Only the first one is successful. In 1099, the European Crusaders liberate Jerusalem from the Muslims. They are successful militarily, except their behavior was so horrible, they further alienated the people of the Eastern Empire and Constantinople. As soon as the crusading knights leave, what happens? Muslims come back. There they go. So we try 7 more times, and everyone is a miserable failure. But this is an important moment in world history. The Crusades show Europe that they were 600 years behind in education and technology and trading. So people begin to go down to the Middle East, and it reconnects Europe with the outside world and ideas. And it kickstarts a new form of government that will destroy feudalism. Poor peasants realize they're going to be poor. But if they risk it and they go down to the Holy Land and they buy some goods cheap at the source and they bring them back to Europe, they can make a fortune. Worst that can happen is what, Dirk? And that doesn't really matter because life sucks anyway. And these people come back and they begin to charter towns where the king will give them permission to build a town to sell their products. Towns are very attractive to kings. Right? Skilled artisans are going to come there. They're going to work their trade there, and they're going to have a lot of cash. If the king gets enough money, who does he no longer need? His nobles. All right, I'll have enough money to hire my own army. So merchants and skilled artisans move there. Creates a new class called the burgher class, which become like city councils. And these burghers set things up so everyone has enough money. Christina's a blacksmith in the south. All right, Danny's a blacksmith in the north. Emmy in the west, and Laura in the east. All 4 blacksmiths have work. They have money. And all of a sudden, the king no longer needs his nobles. It's a little bit of freedom. New towns are created where nothing existed as Europe is opened up. As a result, the schools and universities are built in 1158 where people can get educated. And after 600 years of illiteracy, education is on the rise till 1179 when the Pope decrees anybody in Europe who wants an education can get it for free. So this is a big moment. This is a transition from the Dark Ages to a whole new age, the High Middle Ages. There are still 3 major social classes: the nobles, or the political authority, the clergy who advises the king and does the religious work, and then there is everybody else. But for the first time, a peasant who's a skilled artisan or a merchant can move up the social ladder and make their lives comfortable. 1066, something interesting happens. As William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy in France, becomes the King of England. And he will begin to build the first modern nation state in Europe where people in England will unify. He will conduct a census or a survey for tax purposes. And he's one of those guys throughout world history. The more goods you consume, the more you pay. Thank you. All right, there we go. That's the Doomsday book. It's supposed to say the Doomsday book. And he will unwittingly lead to a major English and French rivalry. Eleanor of Aquitaine will follow good old William the Conqueror, and she will be married to the French king who divorces her. She's on the market for about 2 weeks, and King of England checks Match.com or People Dating Old People, and he sees her profile. And he clicks on it, and she becomes the Queen of England. Now, her dad, Eleanor's dad, is a major French noble. He's very rich. As a wedding present, he gives a lot of his land in France to the King of England. And it started with William. If William was the Duke of Normandy, technically he was a vassal to the French king. So the French felt that the King of England is a subservient vassal to the King of France. And this will start a major war known as the 100 Years' War. Eleanor of Aquitaine, however, was a woman of power. She encouraged women to be self-sufficient, and works of literature from her palace when she divorces the English king come up with the idea known as courtly love, or love from afar. Like, you want to be with someone, but there's someone else in the way. Best example is King Arthur, his wife Guinevere, Arthur's best friend, and her true love, Sir Lancelot. I'd have got rid of Lancelot and solved the whole problem, but that's just me. On the Third Crusade, King Richard the Lionheart will leave his idiot brother Prince John in charge. John will heavily tax the people. He will be excommunicated by the Pope and make the people of England so angry that in 1215 they make him literally at sword point sign the Great Charter, which forever limits the power of the French king. The king is now subject to the British Parliament. Pope Innocent III in the late 1200s will take on 4 different emperors at the same time. He will excommunicate them all. Otto of Germany, John of England, Philip of France and Frederick of Germany. He excommunicates them multiple times and emerges victorious. At the end of the Middle Ages, the church is still supreme. Yes, sir.
When you say Germany now, does that just mean the Holy Roman?
Yeah, Holy Roman, the nation states. Excellent. The 100 Years' War is, before that, the Mongols come over, right as the Renaissance is getting underway, when the people flee the Crimean Peninsula as a result of the Silk Road, the Black Death will make its way into Europe, killing 1/3 of the entire population, not only in Europe, but going back through Asia as well. The 100 Years' War will be very damaging. England will have the upper hand early on, but France will be rallied to victory by Joan of Arc. The war will create animosity between the two countries. It will financially exhaust them, and England kind of goes home to nationalize. They decide to focus on areas outside of their island kingdom and not worry about problems on the continent. So England will become a dominant superpower. Problems for the 100 Years' War and the Black Death, it has a deep effect on the church. When people keep dying, there's no response. They blame the church officials for it. And the church is going to lose a lot of clout as a result of the Black Death. This leads to the idea of the Renaissance and human reason, where we don't need the church to tell us what to do. We can think for ourselves. The Renaissance leads to the scientific revolution, which leads to Will Jansen's favorite period known as the Enlightenment. Where people begin to think about freedom and political thought. It's where John Locke wants to unlock the freedom. Thomas Hobbes will say, well, it's better for a king to hog all the power. All that starts from right here. That, guys, is the Middle Ages, literally as fast as I can possibly do it. You guys feel okay with the Middle Ages? No, the church wins. There we go. And feudalism is macro, minoralism is micro. All right, there we go. Tonight is trading systems and a fancy PowerPoint. Gina, come in.
So have you finally the final exam? I don't get what you mean by
The final exam for me